Today we would be learning more about personal selling. So this session is about understanding the drivers of change that have possibly led to a growing popularity of personal selling in recent years. We would also try to understand the concept and nature of personal selling, its coordination with other elements of marketing, the objectives of personal selling and the importance that it holds for the business, for the consumers as well as for the society at large. We would also deliberate as to what are the qualities that a good salesman should possess and the various knowledge areas which would help a personal selling representative to close a sale effectively. Towards the end, we would try to understand as to what is the relationship of personal selling with the other elements as well as what kind of value addition it brings to the society and to the manufacturers as a whole. Now, what has changed in the recent years? We know, students, that nowadays consumers are very demanding. The heightened expectations of people in respect of what they want, how they want, and the fact that they are no longer satisfied with the basic service offering has put up a lot of pressure on the middlemen, the sales representatives, and of course the manufacturers who come up with the various products and services. The dynamic and complex environment of business which keeps on changing, and the fact that there is a constant interface of the various environmental elements, the micro ones and the macro ones, they have a complete interface with what you offer to the market, and one has to adapt accordingly. The buyers, they have now become increasingly sophisticated in terms of what they want from the marketeers. New technologies and advancement have led to a different kind of new products that enter the market on a daily basis. In result, we now need a more customer-centric approach towards marketing, which is embedded in the form of the personal selling efforts. How can we understand what the personal selling is? Now, we know that this is one of the crucial elements of the communication mix, and it has got interdependence and interlinkages with the other tools of communication like advertising, PR activities, and the sales promotional activities. Now, the main objective why we want to, or why the manufacturers go ahead with the personal selling efforts, is the fact that you do not want to only sell your products, but at the same time you also want to build a mutually beneficial relationship. So on one hand, where the manufacturer gains a lot in terms of selling and in terms of finding a market for its products and services, the consumer also feel all the more satisfied because of this face-on-face interaction that he or she has with the sales representative. So we can say that this is a form of communication which is highly interactive. So on one side, where the sales representative provides you all kind of information that is required in order to buy that particular product, the consumer also can go ahead and seek clarification of his or her inquiries or the various kind of questions that would go on in his mind before he ultimately takes a purchase decision in favor of buying a product. Now, how can we define personal selling? Over the years, number of authors have defined it in different ways, but the more prominent definitions of personal selling is being provided by American Marketing Association, Cundiff and Sill, and Richard Buskirk. So if we look at these three definitions, we would see that according to American Marketing Association, personal selling is nothing but a personal process of assisting or persuading the prospective consumer to buy a commodity or a service and to act favorably upon an idea that has got a commercial significance. It means you are trying to connect with the prospective buyer because you have got some product or service which you think would be able to solve the problem of that prospective buyer or would be able to satisfy his needs set in better manner and in most effective manner in comparison to what competitive offerings are already available in the market. If we look at the definition being provided by Cundiff and Still, we would find that this is an extension of what we have learned through the definition of AMA. So according to that, the personal selling is basically the method of communication, and as I said, it is a communication which goes on one. So this is more direct and this is more personal. So it involves not only an individual but also the social behavior each of a person in a face-to-face contact. Now this contact you are maintaining between a salesman on one side and the prospect on the other side, and both of them, they get influenced by this kind of an interaction which takes place almost in a real time. As per the definition being provided by Busker, personal selling, it consists of contacting the prospective buyers of the products personally. So means you are adopting an approach where you would be visiting their households or you would be interacting them on a personal basis inside a retail premises or inside a store. So from this, students, we can understand that basically there are two types of personal selling approaches which are in place. One, what we call as the counter selling, which you see as happening at the counter when you visit a retail store. So there is a person or there are various people who are there to assist you. So they are also basically performing a personal selling role. The second format is in the field. So what is known as field selling, where the sales representatives go on field. Now what we mean by a field here is the door-to-door interaction that you have. So the kind of sales representatives who probably come to your doorstep with a possible product or a service that they wish you to adopt and they wish you to purchase. So there are various ways in which a personal seller can come into contact with a prospective buyer, but what is the essential element of the whole process is the fact that there is a personal interaction which is taking place, a face-to-face interaction which is taking place. On the basis of the three definitions that we have learned, one can draw some of the characteristics of the entire personal selling process. Number one, this is an interaction which is personal and dyadic. Now what we mean by personal, as I said, that this is a face-to-face interaction. Now because this is a face-to-face interaction, one can draw a comparison of a personal selling effort with that of advertising. Now when you see an ad, it is an advertisement which engages into a communication, and that communication is one-to-many communication. It is not personal. But when a personal seller interacts with a potential buyer, this kind of an interaction is more personal because you are in face-to-face communication or a face-to-face interaction with a prospective client at that very point. Also, the relationship is two-way. So this is dyadic. Unlike in case of advertising where the communication is unilateral in the sense that you are exposed to an advertisement which is being produced, in this case, this is a two-way interaction in the sense that you would be making a sales to, or you would be making an attempt to sell something to the prospective buyer, and at the same time he would be asking you certain queries, he would be putting certain questions, he would be raising certain objections, and you would be handling all of that to the very satisfaction of the customer before he or she goes ahead and makes a purchase. Now in light of this, the second characteristic fits into the whole scheme of things. Like we say that the personal selling effort is adaptable in the sense it is flexible. We know that each consumer is distinct. Each consumer has his or her distinct personality and probably would be looking for some different kind of a solution from that particular product, and that kind of a solution or that kind of a problem interface or that kind of a utility that probably you seek in a product could differ from a person to person, from situation to situation, from product to product, and therefore a sales representative or a personal selling person has to adapt and has to adjust his entire presentation in light of the customer with whom he is dealing with. The response and the feedback comes largely from the customer. So we say that unlike the other tools of promotion where there is a time lag and where you probably devote a lot of time before the sales take place, here what you get is an instant feedback. So if the consumer or the potential user of the product likes it, he is going to place that particular order, and there is a kind of an instant feedback that you are going to get. And if he is not interested in the product, then he is going to tell you that he is not interested, and you would, as a salesperson, would not be able to close the sale. So whatever is the response and wherever the entire process is going, one can easily keep a track of that. Now, unlike again with what happens in case of advertisements, where the person is exposed to those kind of ads which are prepared in advance, in case of personal selling, there is a lot of human element. You are dealing with a human being, and therefore the tone of your voice, the body language, how you address and greet a person, all the aspects of even the non-communication elements would also play a vital role. So there is a human touch, there is a personal involvement while you are interacting with a person, and this is exactly the difference where you would find that people feel more engaged and probably more satisfied when there is a person in front of them who can take care of their needs and requirements and their queries, in contrast to a situation where you are placing an order online and there is no assistance being available to you. So what generally people miss out in those kind of scenarios is the human touch and human involvement, which is very much there in case of personal selling. Obviously, when you are interacting with some person at that moment of time, you can put use of various kind of persuasive skills in order to persuade the person to go ahead and buy that particular product. So the fact that whatever questions come to your mind can be addressed by the personal selling representative at that point of action actually goes a long way in ensuring that probably there would be a chance that the buyer would be able to place an order if he or she is satisfied with the kind of responses that you would be able to deliver. We can say that in sum or in understanding, it is both an art and a science. It is an art because you are making use of your creative skill. A sales representative is making use of his creative abilities, his confidence, in order to connect and engage the consumer in the whole process of making a sale. It is a science because it is based on certain scientific information, some scientific facts about the consumer. So you do that kind of a research beforehand. You try to gauge as to what kind of a person he or she is, and therefore depending on his profile, depending on his needs set, depending on his requirements, depending on his temperament, you try to suggest a product which according to you would be in a best position to satisfy his needs and requirements. So everything is compatible to the person, his requirements and the situation at hand. Now, when we talk about the personal selling and its probably the synchronization with other elements of marketing, we know that this is something which is one of the tools of the entire promotion mix, and therefore it is highly unlikely that it would be used as an isolated tool. Rather, it would always be having some sort of an interlinkage and some sort of an interdependence and coordination with the other tools of your promotion, and therefore the dominant ones being advertising and sales promotion, obviously it is going to have a synchronization with these two broader elements of the promotion mix. So when it comes to synchronizing your personal selling efforts with your advertising efforts, we find that many consumers, they are generally unwilling to pay a premium for green products. We know that the consciousness for these kind of green products and the consciousness towards environmental problem is on the rise. So in recent years, we have found that manufacturers are also feeling responsible in terms of what they produce and how they produce it and what they offer to the market. So there is a greater confidence in the manufacturers in terms of the fact that if they roll out the green products, there would be a receptivity and there would be a acceptance of these kind of products. Now, because these green offerings are little costly to produce, one has to pay a more price, and this kind of a willingness to opt for the green products and to buy a premium price for them, this is something that can come very handy if you rope in the efforts of a personal seller or a sales representative who can then convince the consumers about the advantages of going green, and even if it charges a higher price from the consumers, this is something which is worth making the efforts. Again, when we take an example of understanding how the personal selling efforts are well coordinated with the efforts of sales promotions, you would find that there are a lot of purchase displays, or what you also call as the point of purchase displays inside the retail stores. There are multiple offers in the form of sample offers or the coupons that you get when you go ahead and purchase something. Now, how these coupons can be used, what is the utility of these coupon offers, on what kind of products coupon offers are going. So sometimes you interact with the people inside the store who tell you about these samples, who tell you about the coupons, who tell you about the various kind of sales promotion schemes, and therefore there are many chances that you would end up buying something which was not in your planned list of purchases, only because of this information which is provided through the sales promotion scheme at the point of purchase. It is also coordinated with the various aspects of distribution. Now, when you talk about distribution, for every marketer, it becomes very important that you have your product available at various outlets, and there is a proper distribution that your product follows. Now, when you talk about the distribution, the personal selling helps you to gain the product distribution, especially in the cases where the personal seller is going door to door and is making that kind of a selling effort on the field. You also deal with the dealers, you also deal with the other middlemen like the wholesalers and like the retailers, and therefore it helps you in obtaining dealer identification. The personal selling efforts also help you in reconciling your own goals with that of the organizational goals, and at the same time it also helps in sharing the promotional risk, like ones which are there in the form of taking the cooperative advertising. So both the manufacturers and the retailers, they can take or they can share these kind of promotional risk in the form of cooperative advertising, and who is going to convince or who is going to act as a liaison or who is going to act as a linking pin between the manufacturers on the one side and the retail probably on the other side. The personal seller or the personal selling efforts bridge this kind of a gap and act as a linking pin. Now, having understood about this, one can very easily outline the objectives for which the personal selling efforts can be used. One, it is used extensively for the purpose of prospecting and selling. Now, you know what we mean by prospecting is to identify and search the prospective buyer of the product. Now, not everybody is a prospective buyer, not everybody possibly would be interested in buying my product, but personal selling helps me in making a more focused effort in terms of connecting with the person who has exhibited some of the interest in buying my product and therefore is a more suitable or appropriate prospect to connect with. There's a lot of information and servicing which is embedded in the process. So as a personal selling person, I would not only be gathering the information about the customers and would be passing on this information to the manufacturers, but also I would be passing on this information about the new products and new service offerings which are available in the market to the potential or to the prospective buyers. In some of the cases, the personal sellers or the personal sales people, they also provide services like installation, like let's say your repair and maintenance, connecting with you, also providing you guidance with respect to the use of the product and also the disposal of the product. So there are many kinds of supplementary services or facilitating services which a salesperson is able to provide to you. It may also include the delivery of the product or ensuring that it reaches to the prospective buyer in time. All these efforts ultimately help you in stimulating the demand. Now, the demand is not going to be created in one day. The demand is based on multitude of factors. So you have to start from a stage where you can make the person feel interested in the product, and then that particular interest is going to be given a certain kind of a push by the convincing efforts being made at the end of the sales representative. So you try to bring in more market share for the manufacturer by stimulating the demand for that particular product, and this is something which happens because you create interest of the prospective user in that particular product offering. After a while, we say there is a reinforcement, as we see that this is something which has roots in the behavioral learning theory. So we'd say the buyer obviously is interested to buy a product if there is a positive reinforcement. So you try to provide information and you try to provide guidance to the buyer in respect of what good the purchase of the product will bring to him, or in what respect the use of that particular product is going to be more satisfying for the purchaser. Now once that particular realization sinks in and the buyer is able to correlate the use of the product with a higher satisfaction level in the future time period, he is going to reinforce that particular behavior and he is going to buy the same product again and again. Now this kind of a conviction and this kind of a strength to the product, and the very fact that you have to represent and you have to communicate about the positive aspects and the superior aspects, the competitive edge of the product has to be communicated to the buyer, and this vital objective is being served by a sales representative. At the end, we'd say this is not only about closing a sale, this is not only about helping you in selling your product, but a personal selling effort goes beyond it. It's a kind of an interaction which results into long-term relationship building. So you get to know your consumer better, and over a period of time you cultivate a bonding and you cultivate a relationship exercise with that particular customer, so that even if you do not buy something from that particular personal selling representative, there is some sort of a trust building which happens in the mind of the customer, that he is the one who is going to suggest what is best outcome and what is the best solution for my needs and requirements. So this is ultimately towards a relationship building process that people undertake the personal selling efforts. Now, when we talk about its importance to the businesses, to the consumers and to the society at large, so obviously when a personal selling person or a sales representative goes ahead and connects with the business, you understand that you would be providing lot many advantages and lot many awareness regarding the new products to the people. There is a customization which happens because of the adaptability feature of the personal selling efforts. For the customer, we have seen that there is a relationship building. You understand their individualized needs and you try to adapt your entire presentation so as to suit the needs and the requirements and to help them in making a purchase decision to the best of their advantage. For a society at large, not only it creates the employment opportunities for people who want to act as effective sales representatives, but also there is lot of products which get these kind of demands, where the demands are actually being effective in nature because of the convincing role that the personal selling people exhibit. So in all, we can say that this is something which is very important for everybody, be it a manufacturer, be it a retailer, be it a wholesaler, be it a consumer, be it a society at large. And therefore, we cannot say that this is something which is isolated or this is something which should not be used. In contrast, we find that this has got lot of coordination and lot of synchronization with the other efforts that you put in the form of your various promotional tools which are available to a marketer, and if used in a healthy manner, this would ultimately result into the creation of demand for creating a win-win situation for both the parties, not only for the marketer but also for the consumers. So students, I hope that at the end of this lecture you would have gained some of the knowledge relating to the personal selling efforts. Thank you.